Hi there. This is a bit of a special episode. In honor of Halloween tomorrow, yes, Halloween is tomorrow. Happy Halloween. I wanted to go down a different sort of rabbit hole today. Usually, as per the goal of the show, we talk about, in sometimes roundabout ways, different questions which may help introduce and welcome a listener into not just MAM, but any museum in general. Now, I still have a question. Don't you worry. But allow me a moment to vamp. I just realized there's a Halloween pun in there. Nice. Vampire. Okay, sorry. Focus, Alex. Anyway, for a lot of people, museums represent something old and of the past. I mean, many times, and MAM is no exception, the architecture is often an emulation of classical or just broadly historical construction. It drives focus to an era or time which has long passed. Then also the work on display, in many cases, are old, sometimes ancient, or have storied or perhaps dark histories which add to the allure and mythos of something. That's something we often talk about, is the mythos of a work. Plus, and I think most importantly in the context of this episode, I like ghost stories. I do. I believe in them. I grew up in a pretty haunted house. And let me say, this episode isn't about my ghost stories. Maybe during the course of our conversations, an anecdote or two from my own experiences might come up. But, regardless, I've seen and felt what I believe pretty strongly were ghosts, and always felt sort of drawn to the belief in that sort of thing. So why wouldn't I try and bridge art and the paranormal? There's gotta be something there, right? People often talk about like the White House being like super haunted. And who's to say those same stories aren't true for MAM? Leaving me with the question, is the museum haunted? Let's start by chatting with my friend Susan Cancro, who experienced something in the galleries a few years back. Well, happy Halloween, Susan.
Happy Halloween, Alex. I love this time of year.
It's a good time of year. Tell, for people who don't know you, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Susan Cancro. I have worked here at the museum for almost 7 years. I'm in the education department, and I am the assistant director of education administration and customer service.
That is a long title.
It's a long title. So I do a lot of different things over in the education. Basically, I am the program coordinator for the classes. So I make sure that, the classes are all run properly, everybody's registered. I take care of all the communication between the students, and a lot of other things. But basically, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. I have a very important question for you.
Okay.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I believe in spirits. I guess you can call them ghosts. I do believe we are not alone.
Do you think that the museum is haunted?
Well, I have heard stories of the museum being haunted from people who have experienced things at night and things like that. But until I experienced something myself, now I'm a believer, because it was a couple of years ago and I was standing outside the elevator on the second floor with one of the guards. And we were talking and we heard kids laughing, and it was during the week, so we knew the museum was closed. And we were standing outside Weston Gallery, which was closed for exhibition changes, so nobody was in there. And we looked at each other, and we heard the kids laughing again, like a muffled laugh. And he said to me, "Are there kids here? Because we do have tour groups that come in here, school groups that come in here during the week." And I said, "No, we have nothing scheduled. Nobody should be here." So he and I walked all the way around through the empty Weston Gallery, and there was not one single human being there. So we just looked at each other, and he said, "You heard it, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard it." And we just went, "Okay." And we separated our ways. And that was my experience of what I think was some kind of spirit, in the happy spirit, in the Western Galleries while nobody was there.
Yeah. Do you think that, I guess this is more broad than anything else, but do you think that art can be haunted? Even if, obviously we're talking about the museum and your experience happened in the gallery spaces, but like, I don't know, do you think like a painting or something? Like I remember
I think so, because I've heard other people in the museum, staff members, talk about specific art pieces that were a little creepy or spooky. I mean, I know that there was one piece, and this is a secondhand story. There's a picture of a little girl and a dog, and apparently everybody was a little spooked by the little girl because she would literally follow you. And I heard tales and that her face would change, like her expression would change.
I remember when I was in, so my town's very old. I'm from Ocean County originally, and I grew up in a haunted house, which, I mentioned in the cold open to this, but my elementary school was also rumored to be very haunted. And the third grade wing, it was like the only part of the old original building that was like on a second floor, and that whole side was very creepy. And there was a portrait of George Washington that hung above one of like, it didn't help that it was above one of like the scariest teachers' rooms. But you would walk by and everyone would be like, oh, the eyes follow you, like like the ghost of George Washington is in that painting. It's just funny. I don't know.
There's pictures like that. I had a friend of mine when I was little that had a doll, and it was the creepiest doll in the world because you'd walk into her room and it would just follow you, and we would go in and we'd turn the doll around. It was really like it was just that feeling that somebody was watching you through these dolls' eyes, and it was very, very creepy. But I do think art can be depending on who painted it, why they painted it. I also sometimes think that also your imagination can, run wilder with you. But I have to say that the giggling of those kids was not my imagination.
Yeah.
And honestly, if the guard wasn't with me, because he and I validated it, like we both heard it.
Yeah, you just like looked at each other and went, "Let's get out of here."
Because we did look at each other when it first happened, and I'm like, "You heard that?" And so all kinds of possibilities could have been, but there was nobody. There was nobody there. So,
what year was it?
I don't remember. I mean, I think it was after COVID, and I don't know what they were, because during COVID we had Uribe's exhibit there. He let us kind of keep it there during COVID. And so that was kind of, I think maybe they were moving that out. And that's why it was empty. I don't recall what year it was. Because even at that point we said, oh, maybe it's kids outside laughing, but we were too far inside the museum to have heard. It's like if you were standing on maybe the stairway that faces Bloomfield Avenue, you could hear kids, but we weren't even close to that. So, there's been stories about people hearing movement upstairs, when they're here at night. But I mean, I haven't experienced that.
Yeah.
So. But I do believe, I've gone to a couple of, I don't want to say spooky places, but places where there definitely were spirits. I think I was telling you that I went to a midnight cemetery in New Orleans.
Oh yeah.
And we didn't see anything. The tour guide was telling us of all the things that they have seen. But I also believe when people die very suddenly and they're just not ready to leave, that their spirit or their energy kind of stays there for a little while. People say that on battlefields they've seen fires being lit,
lights and stuff. Yeah.
People just, especially young people who are taken very quickly. So I believe in all that kind of stuff,
If prior to having that experience in the gallery, do you think you would have believed in ghosts as firmly?
I know I do, because I did have an experience. So
you've had more than one?
Not in the museum. This happened in my home. So about 26 years ago, my brother died very quickly. He died of a heart attack. He is 42 years old. He was a New York City fireman. And it was just like out of the blue. He literally had a heart attack and died. So it was very unexpected. It was very shocking. I couldn't get my head around it. So I was sitting on the side of my bed one day, and I felt a coldness. Like I felt not that, heavy kind of like a frost is coming in, but I felt the room get a little cold, and I felt an impression sit next to me on the bed. Like somebody, if you're sitting there and you're not looking, that somebody's sitting next to you. And I felt that. And I said to myself, my brother's here. I really, truly, I felt like that his presence was there. And it was weird because it was the coldness and the feeling of somebody sitting next to you on the bed. So that's I think after he passed away is when my really feel that energy of somebody, that spirit of somebody who's just not ready to let go or still needs to kind of give you signs that everything's okay. And now it's been 26 years since he's passed, and I don't feel him as much as I used to. But in the very beginning, I did. I felt he was still there. And I also believe that when that person's energy is done and comfortable, then it goes to wherever it has to go.
It makes sense. And I think it also, what you were kind of saying about, gently letting people know that they're around, or, the energy that's left in a space or in a place. I think that kind of bringing it back to your story here at the museum, it makes sense. And I think Osana, when we were kind of batting around ideas and stories and stuff at the cafe the other day, and Osana said something along the lines of at least the energy's positive, at least they're laughing, at least.
Yes, she did. She said that kind of energy she enjoys, because maybe it's just somebody just enjoying the museum on an empty day. But I don't fear it. I just think sometimes it's nice to know that maybe there's an energy around you that you need around you. So it's all good. But that was my only experience at the museum so far.
Yeah.
So, but I don't venture in there at night. I don't, I think the facilities people probably have more stories.
Yeah.
Because they're in there at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah. I should probably talk to Alex.
You should definitely talk to Alex, because he has shared some stories with me.
All right.
So
I think that'll be our next conversation.
Okay.
On this Halloween episode.
And I'm now keeping the spirit of the Mets with me.
Yes.
Being that you and I were rivals for a while, but the baseball season's over, so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me come to your podcast and
talk
about
Susan.
My ghosts.
Maybe we'll talk about actual things of substance next time.
This was substance.
This is substance. Thank you again, Susan.
Oh, anytime, Alex.
Thank you, Alex, for jumping in the mix here, telling your ghost story.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, first off, for people who don't know you, I feel like you're one of the most recognizable faces at the museum, because you're always everywhere all the time. You're in the bowels of the museum. You're up on the roof sometimes.
Yes.
You're out on the grounds. Tell people what you do here at MAM.
Well, I gotta maintain this building running, so make sure that it's running for the next business day, so everybody has a job to come to, and try to fix any problems that there is, and plus make sure that everybody's safe.
Yeah. And you are often, you and all the facilities, really, you guys are here the earliest, you're here the latest, you're in the depths of this building, you're all over the place, you're in the walls.
Yes, basically.
So
yes.
You're also the most likely candidates to see and hear spirits and ghosts and all that fun supernatural stuff that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I was like everybody else. I'm skeptic until I started doing some evening events, and I'm the last one out the door. So I'm here all alone in the dark. So basically, in the evenings, there are noises, and people always say, yeah, it's probably the noises of the building, the creaks and the cracks.
Yeah, it's an old building,
It's an old building, even the vents are going, but the vents don't talk. At night, once it starts getting closer to 10 o'clock, and the late hours, when you start getting to 11, by 12... If you're here by 12 and you were here with the lights off, you're bound to hear something. And not only that, but sometimes you do good to get to see something once in a while.
Yeah.
But most of the times it's hearing. And the things you will hear people talking. And even sometimes if you're down on the first floor, you hear people walking on the top, and you think there's somebody else is in the building. But there is nobody else in this building. The lights are shut off. We've shut off everything. We start checking the third floor all the way down to the basement. Make sure that nobody's stuck in this building. And most of the times you do hear voices. You'll hear voices most of the time. In my situation, I've heard... It sounds like a whole bunch of ladies talking. And it's right before I'm closing and shutting the lights off on the first floor.
So in the galleries, or down here?
No.
Because we're chatting in the cafe right now.
Usually when I'm on the stage,
Oh, okay.
and it's night and I'm ready to shut off the Lear Hall lights, I hear from the stage women talking, and I'm there that I think there's women in the classrooms, and there is nobody there. There's nobody, absolutely nobody there, which starts giving me goosebumps. And so once you start getting into the night, I've heard sometimes you hear a man talking, and actually Gerard has told me that one night he thought it was me because he hears keys jiggling.
Really?
So basically there's a lot of activity at night. I'll tell you one thing though, when I put my camera on my phone, every night, no matter what day it is, you'll see what they call orbs. And they seem like lights floating through the air.
Yeah.
And people tell me, oh, that's the dust from the rug and all that. But when you're looking at the camera, and those little dust particles that they call them, when they're blinking, I don't think dusts blink. You know, there are floating dust, but the way these are turning, and I don't think they're dust.
Yeah. And going back to kind of the voices and stuff, what like, are there any like specific stories like up in the galleries or anything like that comes to mind that you've kind of experienced and whatnot?
All right, I'll tell you, I just remembered the first time I experienced something, and that gave me goosebumps, and that made me run out of the room. So basically, the story goes that I've just shut off lights. I have a rack of chairs, and this is in the elevator lobby, which is in the gallery sections. And basically, I shut the light off, and I wanted to see, I don't know, maybe skeptic. I shut off the lights to see if I hear voices or anything. This is the first time. And once I shut it off, I hid in the nook of the elevator. When I hid in the nook of the elevator, right in my ear, I heard, "They're still there." Right in my ear, that it freaked me out that I turned on the lights real quick. I got in the elevator and I came down.
Oh I just got goosebumps.
That was the most chilling, because I never had anything whisper right in my ear.
And did you believe in ghosts before that interaction? Like, have you experienced or anything before, even outside of MAM? Like, just kind of.
I mean, sometimes they would. I would say before that, I was more skeptic because I didn't get enough to believe. I would get like what most people get, like something from the corner of your eye.
Yeah. Are there any other stories of note?
There was one other time on the side entrance. It's, let me see, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm waiting for.
What are you doing here late? So late, so many nights.
Well, we had an event. We had a big exhibit which needed 24-hour security.
All right.
So I'm waiting for the security guard to come, and this is 1 in the morning, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps on the second floor right above me, and then I hear a lady talking, almost like if they were giving a tour. So basically you could call that tour a ghostly tour, because there was nobody there. There was nobody upstairs, nobody. So I go home. The other person took my place, this 24-hour security. And I found out that night that the lady called the police because she thought people were in the museum.
Oh, my God.
So she heard the same
You didn't give her a heads up?
She heard the same thing that I did. You know, I didn't think it was going to happen again.
Yeah.
But it did.
It's always weird when, because I grew up in a haunted house, and I mentioned that in the cold open, but it's always funny when you can get verification that somebody else saw it or somebody else witnessed it, or like growing up, like very briefly, because it's obviously like we're talking about the museum, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about like ghost stories outside of it, but like my ghost story was always, I was a little kid and I was upstairs at my house, and we had company over. I was the only one upstairs. I didn't want to be downstairs with everybody. I was like 6 or 7, and I heard footsteps coming from, because we live in an old Victorian, and so we have a weird butler staircase that is just used for storage, and I heard footsteps coming from there, and I turned around and I saw like a shadow figure, like a full body apparition shadow figure walk by my door.
Yeah.
And forever I told that story, and my mom was just like, you didn't see anything. Our house isn't haunted.
I know.
And then my aunt, who lived in the house before us, was like, oh, I've seen him. It's haunted. So it's
I know
funny.
it's hard to tell these stories because, you know, a lot of people don't believe in it and don't think, you know, and I, not for nothing, but I was one of those people. But, you know, all I could say is, you want to be a believer, come to the museum and we'll spend the night here and we'll see see if you believe it or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it. Well, thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate you chatting with us and joining us for this fun little special Halloween episode.
Thank you very much, man.
Appreciate it.
All right.
So that's that. That was our Halloween episode. What do you think? Is the museum haunted? It's hard to say. It's not often that the museum's open late, so maybe on a free first Thursday you could try your hand at ghost hunting. But I think the guards would probably kick you out before you'd be able to find anything. So yeah, you can follow us on Instagram. Our handle is MAM Montclair. That's MAM Montclair. You could also find us on YouTube. We have a ton of videos and stuff on our YouTube channel. Just search the Montclair Art Museum. Please rate and review this episode wherever you're listening to it. That helps us out greatly. You can also buy tickets to the Montclair Art Museum by visiting our website or coming in person Friday, Saturday, or Sunday of any week. Next week, we'll have a much more normal episode. We'll be talking to a docent here at the museum about tours and different ways that you can experience museums beyond just walking around and reading the wall labels. So it'll be good. Thanks for listening to this special episode, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.